Did you ever think that you would actually have to fight the merchants in an RPG to be able to buy their wares? Neither did I. Yet apparently that's going to be a thing. My name is Tom, otherwise known as Titanium Legman, and today we're talking more Expedition 33.
We are Expedition 33.
Hello everyone, if you enjoy what I do, including my coverage of new upcoming strategy RPGs or regular RPGs, such as the upcoming Expedition 33, then a like on this video, a subscription to the channel, and consideration of checking out my YouTube memberships and my Patreon would be very much appreciated. You get benefits like having your name scroll by at the end of every week, or being able to join up for the monthly Q&A that I do, where you can ask me questions, as well as when we have campaigns going on for games where we can make custom characters, getting priority submission for said custom characters. So check it out. My goal for 2025 is to really ramp up the benefits for Patreon and for my YouTube membership. So it's a good time to look into it. And thank you so much for anyone who supports. But yes, we have a bunch of new information about Expedition 33. This came to us courtesy of an Xbox podcast interview. It's kind of interesting that there's so much of a focus on Xbox and Expedition 33 when it's a multi-platform game. I don't know if Microsoft is involved in funding or something, but we now know that the game's coming out day one on Game Pass, so anyone who has a Game Pass subscription, hey, boom, there you go. This interview was really cool because it was a very down-to-earth, kind of one-on-one, it was, three guys talking, but between the host and a couple of the most key figures behind the game, and there was a lot of interesting new information that came out as a result. So we have three sections we're going to go through today: general info, character skills, and then world map facts, merchants, and the party camp. So kind of like open world exploration things. General info stuff just didn't really have a slot to go into, so we'll just get that handled right off the bat. Also, if you want to watch this interview for yourself, I will, of course, have it linked in the description below. It's a very interesting time, and there might be some little details that I didn't catch or didn't talk about that you want to know from watching it. So, hey, go check it out. Firstly, I thought this was very impressive. Apparently, the art direction was completely rebooted 2 years ago. The creative director and CEO of Sandfall, Guillaume Broche, which I'm probably butchering, again, my apologies, French is not my strong suit, stated that they had initially a very poor art style before they wound up bringing in Nicolas Maxon Francombe, who we saw talk extensively about his work on the game's art in the big direct that we just recently got. Brought him in and revamped everything over the last 2 years. And that's extremely impressive considering how visually stunning this game is at this point. This is important because they really want every scene to potentially punch you in the gut and elicit great emotion, reactions, so having an artistically cohesive and beautiful world is very important for that. They also, this is an interesting one, want to avoid quote-unquote Western-style writing that you typically see in other JRPG-style games. I'm not sure how to take that one. Honestly, it's an interesting quote. I guess they mean in terms of hero narratives and things like that, but I wouldn't really think Western-style writing in JRPG-style games, but I don't know, maybe I'm just not interpreting this right. You can let me know in the comments what your thoughts on that are. Movement is apparently going to be a major factor in level traversal, which we saw a little bit of before. You won't be jumping around like you're in Apex Legends or something, but you will still be jumping, climbing, using a grappling hook, etc. to navigate maps that are set up to facilitate that style of movement. So not just corridor simulator, which is nice. I do like that. The creative director has reiterated multiple times that he doesn't want the game to just be a quote-unquote pretty face, insisting that Expedition 33 have deep mechanics and ways for players to kind of tweak their preferred playstyle and builds, actually have depth to it, reminiscent of a lot of those older JRPGs and RPGs from way back in the day. Final Fantasy VIII was brought up a lot in terms of that, and I know a lot of people are going to disagree with that perspective, but I do agree because I love Final Fantasy VIII. For those of you who've been worried about the complexity of the game with all the different sub-abilities, equipables, skill trees, different character builds, etc., each character does apparently have one quote-unquote main way to play them, which is usually the easiest thing to set up. And then for all of us who like to tweak and build and craft our different setups for our characters, that's where you can find a bunch of crazy combinations by digging into these customization mechanics. And this means that you can play all the characters completely differently from what they're supposed to be played as, and you can compare with your friends and all that type of good stuff. But if you're worried about over complexity, you have a simpler path there. We also have confirmation, this is something that I kind of theorized in my very first video about the game, that hitless battles give greater rewards. This, of course, makes me think of things like Persona and Metaphor, which I'm currently playing just on my own time. However, unlike those games, Expedition 33 gives you ways to negate damage in every fight. It's not just like a, oh, well, you're able to alpha strike the enemy and hit them with status effects or just kill them in one turn before they could hit you. Cool, here's a bonus reward. You have your parries, you have your dodges, and you can even use those to completely no-hit boss fights, with the devs actually stating that they encourage that people who do challenge runs and things like that will be able to do fully hitless runs of the game. The creative director is actually working on one right now in the lead up to the release. He said it's a ton of fun, which is super interesting. I don't know if I have the guts to try and do that with a game this long, but, you know, it could be something that would be fun to check out. We'll have to see. Moving on to the character skills section of the video, this is going to be the chunkiest one. We learned a lot of very important information that we just kind of been speculating about previously. First of all, it is not expected that you will unlock every skill in every character's skill tree by the time you reach the final boss. Instead, the team expects that you'll have about 2/3 of your skills unlocked if you're being diligent and doing side quests leading up to that fight, so your choices will be important for that battle and the battles leading up to it. However, they've also said that if you do dive into the end game, you can get everything unlocked on the whole party. So you do have that option available. And seeing as how they really are pushing the idea that there's a bunch of secret tough bosses and things to find in the world, it's going to be fun to actually get those characters maxed out, I would imagine. We've learned a lot about the Lumina's system. These are those hundreds of passive skills that we've talked about extensively in the last few videos. We finally understand how they actually work for the most part. So, every character has a slot for a weapon, and then 3 Pictos, which are your general equipment and armor that you would expect in this style of RPG. Each Picto comes with stat buffs that you would imagine, as well as generic passive abilities that can apply to any character. What's interesting, and this is a little unclear, I have a little bit of speculation about what this actually means, but what this means is that if you, quote, use these Pictos 4 times in battle, unquote, you'll permanently unlock its abilities on the character who was equipped with it, which is how you acquire most of these skills. Now, I don't know if that means that you just have it equipped for 4 battles and then you get its abilities, or if it has like an ability that you need to actually use 4 times to be able to like permanently unlock it. A little unclear, but it does definitely remind me of things like Final Fantasy Tactics Advance and A2, where having gear equipped would allow you to use the abilities of said gear, and then after you acquired enough AP through battles, you would permanently unlock that ability and could switch to different gear while still keeping those abilities. That's what it immediately strikes up to me. Of course, I'm a tactics head, so that's the closest thing I can think of. There's other systems like this out there in other games as well, of course, but it's good to know where we're actually going to be getting these skills from. This also means that it should be much easier to actually get into character building, as you're not going to just have that entire list of hundreds of skills available to you right off the bat. You actually have to go out of your way to find and equip them, learn them, and build your characters up that way. So again, those of you who are worried about overcomplexity with the game, don't be too worried. It should be a much more gradual process than the, everything unlocked for the sake of dev demonstration builds of the characters that we saw. That just shotguns you in the face with so many different text boxes to read. It's also nice to know that obviously that means there's going to be a lot of different gear in the game with different stats, probably different elemental resistances and boosts and all these different Lumina abilities to learn, and that you're going to be encouraged to swap those pieces around to different characters to learn maybe the same skill on everybody just because it's a good ability, and having to adapt your playstyle to that while you're learning. I love that type of gameplay. Again, it's very much like Tactics Advance and A2, so it should be really cool. Notably as well, this is where the team expects that players will find cool ways to break the game by learning and equipping broken combos of skills or Luminas. I can't wait for that, and they fully, we want you to break this game. That's what, it's on the thumbnail, it's in the title of the video somewhere, the devs want you to break this game, and that's super exciting. We've learned more about the overcharge status / skill that we talked about previously. I thought that it was just Gustav's personal mechanic, but apparently it's just how you describe all of the characters getting powered up with their various different super modes. What that means for Gustav's actual personal skill, I'm not sure. I still don't know if we've actually seen it described anywhere in terms of what it's called or what specifically it does for him. Maybe he's just better with overcharge. I don't know. It's a little strange, but the goal is to be overcharged as often as possible to make your characters and skills, quote, more powerful than they should be, unquote, which makes me wonder what, again, Gustav's actual personal mechanic is and how this is going to play for each character. but we have seen examples like Mael reaching her mixed stance and having a 200% damage boost, or the Twilight stance that CL has, that type of fun stuff. Speaking of CL, we did learn a bit more about how she works as well. We got confirmation that she does indeed use light and dark damage, as well as her skills like Harvest that deal damage and restore life based on damage dealt. That's right, we've got a lifesteal mechanic with the really cool light and dark woman with like a scythe, and like we're full necromancy right now. I love this stuff. This is my favorite thing. Like, if you didn't know how much of a lover of necromancy I am, as well as things like Necrons and Warhammer 40k, undead and fantasy stuff, anything involving regeneration, lifesteal, etc., that is my jam. So I love to see this. We also see that some of CL's best skills consume Foretell to get various bonus effects like more damage, or even give extra Foretell stacks if it doesn't have any when you use the skill, so that's really exciting. What makes this extra interesting is we've now also learned that CL does in fact change stances much like Mael does. It's not just a matter of some abilities applying sun stacks and some abilities applying moon stacks. You actually have stances for the two states. The implication of this is that CL will actually be switching between stances with her skill usage still, but getting different bonuses and applying Foretell in different ways as a result. So you'll be balancing this back and forth to unlock her third Twilight stance, which the devs describe as overpowered. Very much similar to the way Mael is going to function from what we've seen thus far. How this actually works is you apply Foretell charges with Sun stance, and you use Foretell charges with Moon stance. So you have kind of like a prime and then payoff mechanic going on here. I'm just really glad that we have a bit more confirmation about how CL actually works, as she already was probably going to be my favorite character from just like a design standpoint, a mechanic standpoint, and she's absolutely shaping up to be that now. Finally, we have that little bit of like world map, exploration, economy type stuff going on here. As far as traversing the actual world map is concerned, as I'm sure you can imagine, you have less movement options. You're not going to be grapple hooking around and everything, but you do also get the ability to swim and fly with SKA, so you do have that. You will still encounter enemies to fight. We've also seen that there are items to gather and apparently entire levels and bosses to conquer by exploring on the world map. And it's described by the devs as a, quote, completely different exploration game inside the game, unquote. As far as the merchants are concerned, this is a completely new nugget of information, and it's extremely interesting. As I mentioned at the top of the video, we've learned that while you can encounter merchants throughout the world, and they're all Gestrals, since Gestrals are these combat-loving warrior philosophers, they'll only sell you basic items and gear until you beat them in a fight. So while you, again, might be able to get like your potions or whatever that you need, if you want to actually find gear that's going to give you new skills or just be a general power-up or maybe find better consumables, you got to square up and whoop ass, show you deserve the good shit, which is just... it's so fun. I love that. It's such a fun way to be like, here's a merchant. What type of fight am I in for? Put him up. Come on. I got stuff to buy from you. Let me give you my money. Apparently, this will also give you access to their village. What that actually does for the player isn't known at the moment. I don't know how many Gestral merchants you'll wind up running into then, or if there's just like a bunch of little villages with maybe some side quests. We don't really know. Have to speculate on that for the future, but definitely a curious mention. Finally, we talked about this a little bit, so it's good to see a little bit more about it, as I suspected that it would exist. At pretty much any point, you can go to your camp, which we saw on the world map before, and of course, this is going to be where you spend points on upgrades, equip and customize the party, chat with various characters, get special cutscenes between the different characters where you learn more about them, all that type of good stuff. It very much makes me think of the camp in Baldur's Gate 3, which was always fun to go back to. It never felt like you were just leaving the action, having to do humdrum management stuff. There was always something interesting going on top of doing all of your management stuff. So hopefully it's the same case here. That's all the major game info as far as this interview was concerned. There was a bunch of fun information about the overall thought processes behind the art direction of the game, how different voice talent like Ben Starr and Jennifer English were brought in. So it is definitely worth a watch, but I wanted to focus on the actual gameplay mechanics that we learned about here. Maybe I can do a separate video talking about the more artistic creation design of things if y'all are interested, but I know most of you are here for mechanics, so that's what I wanted to do here today. I will, of course, be continuing to cover any and all information that comes out about Expedition 33 because I am hyped for it and you all seem to be as well. Thank you for the support on all the videos I've been putting out about it thus far and on this one as well. Let me know your thoughts on all these different mechanics that we've learned about, and we'll see what new info comes to light, presumably very soon, leading up to the release of the game. Until then, though, my name has been Tom, otherwise known as Titanium Legman. I hope you all have a good night. Stay safe and healthy out there. And remember, be good to each other, everybody. Bye now.